Well, happy Mother's Day. Oh, let's do that one more time. Happy Mother's Day. Our team has worked together to prepare for you this morning a really special service. In honor of Mother's Day, we wanted to give you the best of us. And so we've all worked together as a team to create moments for you to celebrate and to contemplate. And so we've really collaborated. And for the last several weeks, Dave and I have worked together not just to craft today's message, but to co-deliver it. So you'll hear from him in just a little bit. But it wasn't just us. Our musicians have done the same. We've had our musicians co-write the lyrics and the music to an original special song. See, it was our heart and it was our hope that you would feel, no matter what your situation, that you would feel extra loved on by us today on Mother's Day. But you know, if I'm going to be really honest with you guys, I have to admit, the notion of motherhood is really intimidating to me. And it's not just now, it's been intimidating to me since I was a really little kid, maybe especially so as a little kid. To me, mothers were just next level. They were superheroes. They had everything you might need in their bag. They knew exactly what to say. It was just an absolutely impossible standard. And I don't know about you guys, but I grew up on Disney movies. Anybody else? All those animated classics that my generation was raised on. And so burned into my brain is this scene from Peter Pan where Wendy, do y'all remember this? She explains what a mother is to the lost boys. Even as a little kid, I was in awe. And she had that beautiful voice, and she said, "A mother, a real mother, is the most wonderful person in the world." Do y'all remember that? And then she broke out into this like angelic lullaby, and she sang these words. "Your mother is the angel voice that bids you goodnight, kisses your cheek, and whispers sleep tight. The helping hand that guides you, whether you're right, whether you're wrong." And then she says, "What makes mothers all that they are? Might as well ask, what makes a star?" And I remember being a preschooler going, I can never do that. And I really felt that way. I was so overawed at what it took to be a mom, I wasn't sure I wanted to try. I wasn't sure I'd be any good at it. And I really think that that could have been the end of it. That might have been my life journey, except that I fell madly in love, head over heels, for a man who knew he wanted a family. He had no fear, he had no doubt. And so I turned it over in my mind, but there was a day that I remember so vividly when I finally got on board. Because y'all remember that phase as a newlywed, right? It was one of those lazy Saturday mornings as a newlywed where I thought all of a sudden, oh my gosh, it makes so much sense because this thing we have that is so good, this thing, this life we're building, this home we're creating, this love is so overflowing that I have to pour this out on somebody. The only thing that would make this better is to share it. And so I decided, okay, yeah, you know what? I want a baby. I want to do this thing. Let's do this thing. But that didn't make me any less afraid. In fact, my fear kind of ramped up. Because you see, I knew, and maybe I knew better than most people know, I know how hard this world can be. I knew what my baby, our baby, would be in for. I knew how dark it could get. Because y'all know, at the time I was a prosecutor. And so my job every day was to be surrounded by felons and to stand in a courthouse that was entirely devoted to trying to right all the wrongs that people do to one another. And I knew how ugly that could look. So I was terrified. I really was. And the first time I was pregnant with a child, I had our first baby with me in utero for my first ever murder trial. And they say, I've read about it. They say that a mother's stress levels can actually affect the fetal motor activity of a baby. And I can tell you, I can testify today that that is 100% true because I had just done closing arguments and the court called me. And I got the phone and the court said, "You have a verdict." And I leapt out of my chair and so did she. I was like, whoa! Oh, I'd never felt that before. And she kept kicking as I ran to the courthouse. She kept kicking as the jurors started filing in. And I was standing there, all my nerves going nuts, and she was going nuts too. And she kept kicking when I heard, "We, the jury, find the defendant guilty." And she kept kicking. And it was one of these weird moments of like mixed emotions because I was like, oh, I'm feeling my baby for the first time, and oh, I just won a case, but also, oh my gosh, that great dilemma of here is this ever-present, tiny new life. I can just picture these little hands and these little feet, and I am bringing them into this. I am bringing her into this, and I know that I can't keep her safe. I know of my insufficiency. And it wasn't even so much my insufficiency to keep her away from the danger that was out there, the hardship and the heartache. It was my insufficiency to keep her safe from me, from my faults and my shortcomings. She didn't have a shot. She was, of course, going to land in therapy. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no clue. And she was going to find out at some point. And it terrified me. I wasn't going to be half the mom my mom was. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. But you know what? I had this like glimmer of hope. I had this little glimmer of hope. Because see, at that time, I was also a child abuse prosecutor. That was my specialty. And so most of my days I spent sitting with kids, survivors who came from the worst family environments that this world can come up with. And over and over and over and over again, I started to detect this pattern. See, child after child, to my shock, to my astonishment, in some of the worst situations, what I noticed was that these kids, even when it was completely unexpected, when it wasn't deserved and it wasn't earned, these kids they would just keep in their hearts this tiny little candle lit for their mom. And I saw that over and over again, times when I thought, that's surely not now. Surely, I'll meet this kid and I'll talk to them and I'll learn their little story and I'll see that that little flame is snuffed out, that this has grown cold. But man, it would be there, faithfully it would be there. If I just dug a little bit farther, I'd see that little flame. And it occurred to me in that moment, in that season of my life, that a mother has something profound. She has this unique power. A mother holds this sacred space. See, it's a peculiar privilege to be a mom. As a mom, I get to have a front row seat. I get to witness the most tender and the most vulnerable moments in my child's life. And it's not because I earned it, and it's not because I'm good at it. I'm invited to that no matter what, just by being. In my mind, that is such a holy position, to have that kind of intimate position in your kid's life. And because of that, I can give myself grace even as I fumble it, even as I figure it out through trial and error, even as I fall over myself at it. Because my job isn't to be perfect at it. My job is just to be present for it. I don't have to eliminate every risk and every danger. That's all going to be there. I know that that's all going to be there, but so am I. I get to stand here in the midst of that, a refuge, a shoulder to cry on, an ear to listen. I get to be the safe space. You know, it's an amazing thing that we bring all of our broken bits to this job, and yet we get to come to it anyway. And Cammie and Maddie have written a song to give voice to that struggle, to that tension. But you know, I think you'll hear in it what an incredible thing it is that our mothers showed up, that they showed up, that we show up, and simply in that willingness, simply with our presence, we disarm the darkness, and we dispel the fear, and we make it better. And that is enough, and that is extraordinary.
She's right, you know. It's impossible to shepherd young hearts, welcome prodigals home, remind the seeking ones they are not alone. Mend the broken pieces, champion the truth. It's sweet and sanctifying, this thing you're called to do. You may doubt you are enough because it feels like too much. Surrender all your fears. He made you with a purpose. He's never amiss. You were called for such a time as this. It has the power to break us down or the strength to build us up. There's just something extraordinary about maternal love. I think we understand this both from the positive and the negative. When that love is somehow taken from us or denied its expression in our life, the void that it leaves is irreplaceable. And when we experience it, when we are blessed enough to be the recipients of maternal love, we realize how powerful it is. See, as human beings, we are crafted with a survival instinct. It is, we are born knowing that life is a battle, that it's a fight, and that the odds are against us from the moment that we are born, and that we are born into a struggle. And that survival instinct that is embedded in each one of us moves us forward. It pushes us into challenges and into struggles and to accomplish great things. But that survival instinct is multiplied 1,000-fold when a mother shares that protective instinct for her child. It's almost incomprehensible for us to imagine taking on, not only surviving for ourselves, but actually standing in the gate and standing at the doorway and saying, this other one you will not harm. To get to them, you must come through me. And I will not bow and I will not bend, and you will get to them over my dead body. It's an impossible thing to imagine being willing or having the capacity to take that on. This is the power, this is the gift of maternal love. And you would think that the Bible would give us encouragement and tell us that this kind of love is good, and that it's beneficial, and say, here's the blessing of that. If you decide to take on the challenge of motherhood, if you decide to be a godly woman, you would think that the Bible would say, well done, nice job. But it does exactly the opposite. It actually raises the bar. It actually makes the standard even more impossible. At the end of the book of Proverbs, over the last 2 weeks, we've been talking about the nature of proverbial wisdom when it speaks into the family. And how do we build a family? Well, the entire book of Proverbs ends with a description of a godly woman. And it begins in verse 10 where it says, who can find a virtuous and capable wife? Well, none of us can. They just find us. I think that's how it works. She is more precious than rubies. Her husband can trust her, and she will greatly enrich his life. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She has the power to give life to another. And then it describes her behavior. Listen to this. It's ridiculous. She finds wool and flax and busily spins it. She is like a merchant ship, bringing her food from afar. She gets up before dawn to prepare breakfast for her household and plans the day's work for her servant girls. She goes to inspect a field and buys it, and with her earnings, she plants a vineyard. This is in the Bible. This is the standard. This is the bar. She is energetic and strong, a hard worker. She makes her dealings are profitable. Her lamp burns late into the night. Her hands are busy spinning thread. Her fingers twisting fiber. She makes her own clothes. She extends a hand to the poor and open arms to the needy. She has no fear of winter for her household, for everyone has warm clothes that she made herself, that she spun from wool and flax out of the vineyards and the fields that she bought. This is the woman who's the CEO of the world. She's running society from a barca lounger. She makes her own bedspreads. Who is this? She dresses in fine linen and purple gowns. Her husband is well known at the city gates where he sits with other civic leaders. Yeah, because she's running the place. She makes belted linen garments and sashes to sell to the merchants, along with her wine and along with the clothes that she makes and the small business she operates. She is clothed with strength and dignity. And she laughs without fear of the future. When she speaks, her words are wise, and she gives instructions with kindness. She carefully watches everything in her household and suffers nothing from laziness. Her children stand and bless her. Her husband praises her. There are many virtuous and capable women in the world, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive and beauty does not last, but a woman who fears the Lord will be greatly praised. Reward her for all she has done. Let her deeds publicly declare her praise. How is that possible? The question isn't, how can a woman ever measure up to that standard? The question is, why even try? The inadequacy, the difficulty, the struggle, the reality of what faces the godly woman and the godly mother is insurmountable. But it's an invitation, you see, to participate in something beyond themselves. It was 35 years ago, probably around this time, we had 3 daughters. Our family, we were blessed. My wife gave birth to 3 amazing women. And at the time, 35 years ago, our oldest daughter was 5, our middle daughter was 3, and our youngest daughter was 14 months. And I remember the day because it was the week before my birthday, in between Mother's Day and my birthday, and I came home from work one day, and we lived in Dallas, and we had those rear entry garages, you know, where all the alleys are in the back, and you would kind of pull in, and then and you came in from our garage through the laundry room, and as you came around the corner, you came into the kitchen. And as I came around the corner, there in the kitchen was my wife and my 3 daughters, and my oldest daughter, who was 5 at the time, had a rolling pin in her hand. This was not a good sign, because she would be more inclined to weaponize that than use it to bake something. But they were, in fact, baking something. The entire kitchen table was covered in flour. In fact, all of the girls were covered in flour. My middle daughter was drawing figures on the table in the flour, and my youngest daughter, 14 months old, was sitting in a high chair eating raw dough. And I walked in and I saw the chaos of what's going on, and my daughters looked up at me and said, "Daddy, we're making you a birthday pie. Your favorite apple pie, Daddy." And I realized in that moment, what they were making was a mess. What they were creating was chaos. But in their mind, they were participating with their mother to make something as a gift. You see, they weren't making the pie. My wife was making the pie. And so it is with mothers. They're making the pie, but really it's God who is at work through them, who invites them to participate with him in this great endeavor, this great adventure, this impossible journey. And God says, you can survive the chaos because I will make the pie. So today, we celebrate the moms. I celebrate today because today is the first Mother's Day of my daughter. It is her first Mother's Day. And I celebrate all the mothers who are here today, that you go beyond yourselves, that you pursue that which is impossible, to participate with God, to make our lives better.